Hey, coaches. So today we're going to be looking at the next step or the next part of coaching around decisions. And this is going to be dedicated to surfacing a variety of elements that can be included as part of exploring a decision that needs to be made within a coaching session. Like I said in the last video, a coach will often bring their default ways of thinking, some questions they're very comfortable asking themselves as coach and others as clients to help thoroughly flesh out a decision. And those can be great, but they also can be a bit one sided. On the flip side, the client will have their way of commonly considering the decisions that they're making. These can be great, but they're going to the coach because they're not sufficient. They don't feel as if they have thoroughly explored the decision and their confidence isn't quite there. Oftentimes, when a coach and a client mix their separate frameworks and common questions they ask themselves, then it is a more thorough recipe of decision making elements. However, it is very important for a coach to be aware of the variety of things that can be included as part of coaching around decisions. So, we're going to list up here a variety of things, and with each, we're going to try to offer a few different questions that might be involved with each element. So the first element is the one I listed first because it's my favorite, and that is data. So looking at what are the facts that are most relevant for you in relation to this decision that needs to be made? Or what do you know is true about this decision that is a part of the picture for you? What is true about what happens if you don't make the decision that you also want to include as part of this picture? What are some of the raw numbers? What are some of the data points that you have been weighing or want to weigh going forward in order to make a better decision? The next one is emotions. This is for me on the opposite side. But what are some of the emotions that you experience right now, client, as you consider option B? What are some of the emotions you have right now as you consider option A? But you can carry this forward and consider what are the emotions you may feel if you've gone down the path of option B or A for a year or 2 years. So the emotional state can be more dynamic than just how does this make you feel to go down one path or the other. What skills are most important for you to cultivate? What skills do you have that will help you if you go down option A or B? What values are most at play that would pull you towards option A? What values are most at play that you want to honor that would pull you more towards option B? What do you most hope would happen if you took path A or took path B? And similarly, what would you most fear might happen if you took A or B? We can ask questions that bring in an element of time. For instance, what from your past helps you determine which of these paths might be most useful? Or what have you learned from previous decisions like this that you want to apply to this decision? You can look at present or present to future. What's the difference between making the decision, or what impact would making the decision on path A of pursuing that promotion or path B in terms of waiting to ask for a promotion until next year? What happens this week, this month, if you take option A or B? Then you can also look at the future. Again, what impact would it make on you if you took option a year from now? Where would you be? A year from now, down path B, where would you be? Where might you be? Because that's in the future. What impact would this have on other people in your life? What might your family think? What might your teammates think? What might others like your manager or your friends, what might they think or say or feel as you make decision A or B? What is most important to you? How would you be able to be your most authentic self if you went down option A or option B? Who do you most want to be as you consider this path or that path? What's the purpose you are going to pursue with your life or with these next 2 years of your life as you go down this option or that option. If it's considering going back to school, for instance, what is the purpose you are going to be able to fulfill by going down that path for the next 2 to 4 years? What purpose would you be able to fulfill if you went down the other path of not going back to school for the next 2 to 4 years? With that example, I hope I hope it's clear that asking questions around A and B, similar questions around A and B, can be very useful, because if I just ask about purpose in this example of going back to school for the next 2 to 4 years, there's going to be a positive on that side, but there could be just as much positive on the other side. And as a coach, I do not know where the most positive or most reasonable or most impactful uh, data is going to be, or the most impactful concepts or learning might be. The client can surface as we ask these questions on either side of a decision that needs to be made. What does your intuition tell you? What's the feeling you have inside, or the rightness you sense as you consider A or B? This one for me is probably the furthest away from what I'm comfortable coaching around just for myself, because it takes the idea of emotion and goes even further, because it's more of that physiological sensing. But others find this to be extremely helpful as a part of the picture. What do you sense inside of yourself as you imagine yourself going down option A, as you imagine yourself having that confrontation with your skip level boss? What do you sense inside of yourself going back to work over the next week, not having had that confrontation with your manager, your skip level boss? What will you gain if you go down option A? What will you lose if you go down option A? What will you gain if you do the same with B? Or sorry, you ask the same question around, what would you gain down path B? What might you lose if you go down path B? If we as coaches, as we're asking questions around decision making, sometimes it can be very easy for us to lean our questions into the option we feel most comfortable with. So if one of the decisions is whether or not this person should do a whole career change, even though as their coach, I've been coaching them on how to grow in their corporate ladder, how to get that promotion. And a lot of my time has been invested in helping them pursue this long-term goal. And yet in this session, they want to consider whether or not they want to make a drastic career change. My questions would possibly, my heart might be drawn to ask questions that help them more thoroughly explore the loss they may experience if they leave their job, and what they could gain if they stuck with their job for another 5 years. That's the danger, though. Not in me going into advice mode, but allowing my heart to lead the exploration of that decision. That's why it's important to ask these questions on both sides, unattached. We do not know what the response might be, but it's important to shine the flashlight of the coaching experience on all sorts of elements. And as we look at the elements, to consider both sides of the decision making. It's not an exhaustive list, but I hope that it's a bit exhausting to consider how many options there are. But now consider how you may combine many of these ingredients. And I was already demonstrating that a little bit as we consider the time of what do you hope might happen in the future. So hope, time, future. What legacy do you hope to create 5 years from now if you go down path A? Or another one, what fears might your family have, others? What fears might your family have if you chose path B? What fears might they have if you chose path A? And continuing to look at all of these ingredients, you can bring in a very holistic exploration as you not only explore various bits or ingredients that are listed here, but the combination of those ingredients. As you consider the raw facts and the numbers between A and B, how does that sit with you? What are the emotions that are occurring to you right now? Back and forth, both sides of the decision, and combining these various ingredients. The challenge is that the coach cannot know which ingredients are most important to explore. It's important, though, for the coach to know that there are so many ingredients to explore. There's so many ways that we can unpack and explore a decision. The coach needs to be a confident voice, ear, listening for this person, asking questions that help thoroughly explore the decision. And yet, at the end of the day, it is the client's recipe. It is the cake that they are going to eat. And it is critical that the coach's voice is most quiet in the decision-making process. We are there to surface ways of thinking about the decision, not to guide them towards the right decision. Because as a coach, unless it's something illegal or unethical, I cannot know what the right decision is for this person. I hope this is kind of helpful, but I do hope it's a little bit overwhelming. We're going to talk more about how do you go on to combine all these different ingredients effectively in our next video as we consider working with the client to identify what elements are most valuable to explore around this decision. The idea of co-creating and co-exploring in decision making. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for coaching.